Call the work session of the Anchorage School District to order at 4 p.m. on September 3rd. And we have everyone, including myself. Board requests for information. We have items that need to be answered, or
they've all been categorized.
Okay. Does everybody have a copy of the information request? Pending ones are from Member Donnelly about Municipal Channel 19, legality of the display of the Gay Pride flag or Black Lives Matter flag, Freshman Academy information, syllabus, curriculum, teacher prep, and one that I put in that our YouTube channel now carries advertisements that are not within our control. And from Member Bellamy, an update on the Chinook Playground fire, costs for repair. So I take it we're not ready to answer any of these.
We are not. Most of those will be available in Board Connect as soon as we receive the feedback we need.
Okay. And we have.
It's my question on the list, but I can't remember if I put the right name of the school. Was it, it reads Chinook, but which playground, most recently, the playground that burned? I know it wasn't Creekside. It was Chinook. Okay. All right. So thank you.
Any other or additional requests from members for information items? Seeing none, we'll move from that to section C, discussion about teacher recruitment and retention.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we'll transition into our work session on educator recruitment retention. This is a top priority for the district, so we look forward to briefing the board on progress to date in this area. Mr. Lang.
Thank you, Dr. Bryant. Good afternoon, President Holman, members of the board. Happy to be here with the talent management team this afternoon, in many ways to do a follow-on to a presentation that we gave last January on this topic. Want to make sure as we head into this new year that you've got all the up-to-date information on kind of where we are with our recruiting efforts and where we're going with our retention efforts. So I know most of you. I'm Marty Lang, Chief Human Resource Officer. I'll hand it off to Peggy to introduce herself.
Hello, I'm Peggy Rankin. I'm the Senior Director of Talent Management.
Nope.
Okay, there we go. Hi, everybody. My name is Amanda Graham, and I'm the Assistant Director in Talent Management.
And my name is Lucy Tieford. I'm the recruiter also in Talent Management.
All right, with further ado, let's get into the agenda. Thank you, Lucy. So just a few things we're going to cover today. Won't spend a lot of time going through it line by line, but this is our agenda for this afternoon. Next slide. So as you remember from our last presentation, this is the state's Teacher Retention and Recruitment Action Plan. Out of the 6 recommendations from the state, ASD recruitment team is focused on enhancing recruitment efforts and opportunities, creating paraprofessional pathways, streamlining certification and recertification, working with D directly. And there's also a link to that TRR playbook in case you're interested in reviewing it again.
All right, so when we presented in January, one of the things that we took a considerable amount of time to do was kind of provide a larger context for where things are around recruitment and retention at the national level, the state level, and then kind of focusing on our local data. For the purpose of this presentation, we're going to stay a little bit more local. Suffice it to say, not much has changed in the overall landscape in the last 9 months. We know that there are still more teachers generally leaving the profession, or educators in general leaving the profession, than there are entering our traditional teacher preparation programs at the university level. And so we know that is the context in which we are operating right now. So I want to focus a little bit on some of our key metrics that we focus on year over year and pay pretty close attention to. So this first one, it should look familiar. It's been presented to the board a couple of times. Previously, it was a 5-year look back on the number of resignations that we've seen over time, specifically with our teacher group, which is our largest bargaining unit, about 3,000 members. This adds a 6-year, includes data from last year. I know from being a principal that, resignation numbers are going to fluctuate up and down from year to year. There are lots of variables that impact this number, right? Some years you just have more teachers in your building that are retirement ready, folks who are going to take a break from employment because they're starting a family or their spouse is moving with the military. And so there are a lot of things that can buffet that number. But there are, I do like watching this number nonetheless, because there are some things that you can notice do impact these numbers pretty significantly. For instance, in 2019, 2020, we saw, of the last 6 years, our lowest number of resignations that year. And if you remember that spring semester, we were just heading into the pandemic. The economy was starting to freeze up. And I think a lot of people decided it was time to stay put, who might otherwise have been considering leaving ASD that particular year. You fast forward a couple of years to 21, 22, we're coming out the other side of the pandemic, and there was a lot of volatility across all sectors of the labor market, and we saw that in our teacher turnover rates as well. The last couple of years have been somewhere between those two numbers. The one thing I will say about this number, just to give some added context and nuance to it, is we had 358 resignations last year. That's as measured from July 1st to June 30th. That does not include the number of folks in AEA who may have applied for and successfully transitioned into other roles within the district. So we have a lot of teachers in the classroom, counselors, nurses, whatnot, who may apply for and become assistant principals and principals. And if you add those into this number, that last number for 23-24 jumps to 392. So that 358 just represents the people who actually resign from Anchorage School District as an employer.
Remember lessons.
Thank you. Do you have a sense of whether, and if so, how the years of the teachers, when a teacher resigns, are we seeing more teachers with more or fewer years of experience resigning now versus a few years ago? Did that come out? How has the nature of resignations changed? I think
we have some exit survey data at the end that shows those percentages that I think will give you at least a snapshot for this last year. And then if you want a more in-depth answer to that question, we can touch on it then, or we can certainly provide that to the board later on. So this next metric is an important snapshot. It's the number of vacancies essentially on the first day of school when kids come back. That's the point in the year where we want that number to be as close to zero as possible. We want every student to walk into a classroom or a school and have all of those certificated positions filled. Unfortunately, given the current labor market conditions, we are seeing that trend go in the other direction. So even though last year we had fewer resignations than the year before, we have more vacancies as of the first day of school. And that is because it is getting more and more difficult to source qualified certificated teachers in this market. The other thing that scares me a little bit about this metric is those last 2 years where we had 140 and 148 vacancies on the first day of school respectively, is the last 3 years we've turned on a lot of non-traditional pipelines for finding teachers. So we'll talk a little bit here in the presentation about Bridge USA, J1 visa holders. We'll talk about retire, rehire. We'll talk about emergency certification. We've turned on those pipelines just in the last few years, and it's still has been difficult to source the teachers that we need. We know that about 2/3 of our teachers we have to recruit from outside of the state of Alaska. And so, staying competitive in that market is getting increasingly challenging as the resources are getting more scarce across the entire United States. Amanda's going to talk about these next couple of slides and our hires for the year.
Yeah, thank you, Marty. So this slide here represents the number of fully processed hires that the Talent Management Office has made as of August 27th. More specifically, it's the number of employees that we have hired for the 24-25 school year. I want to point out that the classroom support category you see on this graph is made up of paraprofessionals, our kindergarten paras, as well as classroom tutors. So it's not broken down paraprofessional separately. This is all of our classroom support positions in that category. You will also see on the next few slides some of the things that have attributed to the increase in our hiring in our classroom support positions. 145 hires is what we've made for this fiscal year. So we're really happy about that. Next slide.
Question? Mr. Chair?
Member Bellamy?
Thanks, Amanda. Can you just explain what's the types of positions that are in administrative and professional and support?
Sure. So the administration is our principals and district level administration positions. And then the professionals and support would be like our finance department, our IT department, those district support positions and professionals.
Okay, and some of those positions might have been filled in-house, which then created a new position, correct?
Correct.
All right, it's a
Yes.
vicious circle. I just wanted to make sure we
Yep.
got that out. Thank
Yep,
you.
got it. And then this graph here outlines our vacancies that we currently have across all of our bargaining units. And this was the data as of Friday, the 30th. It's the vacancies posted on our website. One thing I want to point out is that our special education vacancies are down from about 60 the same time last year. And that our elementary classroom vacancies are up. The elementary classroom vacancy area is an area that is becoming increasingly harder to fill. And our classroom support positions are starting to trend down. And we're going to show some more of that data in detail in the next couple of slides.
Member Weston, so ask everybody to be sure and get right in their microphone.
Okay, thank you. Do we know whether there are discrepancies between sort of title schools and non-title schools when it comes to vacant positions? Are we seeing more vacancies in more challenging teaching environments?
We have not looked at the openings, title versus non-title. However, in the next slide, I can address how the substitutes are doing in our title schools.
I guess I would appreciate follow-up as available.
Of course.
Down the line. Thanks.
And I would add into that, not simply vacancies, but movement away from certain schools towards other schools. I believe HR tracks that. Member Bellamy?
So I guess I don't even know how to quite ask this, but I know we had several of our instructional coaches be moved at the last minute into classrooms. And I know that grant ended a couple of years ago. We hung on to like 14 of them. So how do we get around? I guess we must have some kind of contract language that allows us to do that kind of a switch at the beginning of the year. And so I just kind of want to get an idea of how we navigate that. I know we all serve all staff serve under the direction of the superintendent, but when we make those decisions, how do we decide which support people go back into the classroom? I know having a teaching credential is one of them, but what are the other factors that we look at to make that kind of a change? Because it really is it's a need, it's a valid need, but it is a little disruptive to the employee.
I agree. It is disruptive, and I'll give a brief answer to that, and Mr. Gustafson can add to it because his team was really key in making those difficult decisions. But we try to take care of any known displacements in the spring prior to school startup, right? We know that displacements in and of themselves are disruptive. We want to give as much lead time as possible for educators to, orient at their new school, get settled in, move to their new classroom, prepare for whatever new subjects they might be teaching or grade levels that next year, and really have the entire summer to mentally prepare for that. We know that changes right before the start of the school year are difficult. There is contractual language that allows us to make some of those administrative moves based on enrollment changes, because up until students really start verifying their enrollment to the school, and as we get closer to the start of the school year, it's difficult to get a hyper accurate picture of where kids are actually going to be and where those needs are going to be. And so any changes in the fall are always based on those enrollment shifts. And so I don't know, Mr. Gustafson, if you have anything you want to add to that.
No, that's pretty much what it is an enrollment shift, and many schools come in with enrollment down lower than we expect, and some schools come in with enrollment higher than we expect. And then there's also the other kind of deal where some of the schools had so many openings just days before the school year started. We had to do some work to get those kids have actual teachers in their classrooms too.
I'm glad to hear that this is bubbling up a lot of questions for folks and that you're interested in this data, and we are happy to come back and do subsequent presentations. So yeah, collect your questions and we'll certainly follow up on them.
So in addition to our regular hires, we hire a lot of temporary and substitute teachers who support our school's function on a day-to-day basis. Last year, we implemented a $25 differential in our Title I schools. And I am excited to say that has increased subfill rates by 3%. It was just rolled out last year, so we've done a lot of recruitment around there, and we're certain that increase will continue to happen.
And I'd be curious if we could also get subfill rates for the district as a whole. I'd be interested in that as a monthly thing. I know it's not what it used to be. But it would be, I think, a good thing for us to monitor month to month as we go through the year.
Yeah, I agree, President Holloman. We just had that conversation today that we know there's some more data we want to mine on that topic as well.
All right, with the persistent substitute teacher shortage that we still continue to have, as we're not filling all of our positions, we were delighted to have House Bill 230 become law on the 26th. This allows our retired Alaska teachers with a lifetime certificate to substitute for up to 165 days now. It was 120. So now they're able to cover the full year at the 165 with that lifetime certificate. And it removes the statutory limit on the number of years of teaching experience that they can bring from out of state. So those are two big moves that we believe will help with the recruitment of our teachers and retention of our retired folks.
Member Wilson?
My question on that is, so what is the current statutory limit on the number of years the experienced teacher can bring in from out of state? And how do we expect that to change to help with our recruitment? Because I know right now many other states are a lot more competitive in that regard. And so how does, if you could explain to me how that works now in regards to how many years and how we expect ASD expects to move forward in that and changing that.
I'll address that question, Member Wilson. So the statutory limit said that if somebody moved in from out of state, it didn't matter if they had 20 years of teaching experience. If they had a bachelor's degree, we could only grant them 6 years of experience on the salary schedule. And then if they had a master's degree, we could grant 8 years. And so what House Bill 230 effectively does is it stripped out that language entirely that set any statutory limit. So now we've overcome that statutory hurdle. So we could conceivably, based on state law, grant them all 20 years of experience if they had that out of state. We do also have language in the AEA contract that limits the number of years that somebody can bring in from out of district. So that would be somebody coming in from out of state or from another district in the state of Alaska. And we're currently in conversations kind of working through what that will look like in terms of language in the contract going forward. There's a number of different groups that have to be considered here. The group we just hired that was still under that statutory limit, what we do going forward, and then also what do we do for those folks who were hired previously, who were limited in the experience they could bring in. So we are looking at all of that and working on a plan for addressing that.
Member Wessels.
Thank you for the question and the answer, and then maybe just to follow up. But we don't have like a current plan to implement HB 230 exactly as it was authorized because we have contract language in the way right now.
Correct. We have to go through our normal processes to change language in a contract before we would be able to implement any plan.
That was one of my questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
The statutory language just gives the district room to negotiate. It does not say they bring in 30 years. Well, they can bring in 30 years, but we negotiate where on that 30 years that they come in, or do we have to give them? What does that look like?
I think your characterization is correct that the removal of that language from state statute now gives us the freedom to figure out how we renegotiate that topic
Okay,
going
so
forward.
you're just not stuck on the 6 or the 8.
Correct.
Okay.
And so am I understanding you right that you're going to wait until the bargaining to address that as opposed to, say, a letter of understanding or memorandum of agreement now?
To be determined. to be determined.
Anyone else with questions? Seeing none, please continue.
All right, I would like to thank the board for passing the resolution to reemploy our retired teachers. We sent postcards out in June to all of the ASD retirees with local addresses in hopes of attracting those that have retired and want to return for a year contract to support our students. And then we'll be sending out another postcard in December for those that retire in FY24. We have 40 retirees that have applied for positions with us. And as of Friday, we had 18 retirees already hired supporting our students directly.
A follow-up kind of from the previous, if you did have, say, a teacher that retired after 20 years that was rehired, what step in line do they come back in as?
We were able to sign a letter of agreement with the union last year that allowed those folks who had worked for ASD, who had earned a certain number of steps on the salary schedule, to come back as a retiree hire at the same step on the salary schedule that they left ASD with.
All right, so also in line with the teacher recruitment and retention playbook and action plan, we are enhancing our recruitment efforts and opportunities consistently. So we do this through hiring incentives, through online recruitment platforms, through local job fairs, marketing campaigns, including a robust advertising campaign with GCI, through Grow Your Own programs, and through the Bridge USA J1 Visa program. So starting off with some of the hiring incentives that we're currently offering and continuing to offer for ASD staff and new hires. The first being a referral bonus. So any current ASD staff member who refers a member of the public for employment with ASD in a bus driver or attendant position, a SPED paraprofessional educator position, or a cafeteria manager, assistant manager, lead, or assistant position will receive a referral bonus as long as they are named on the application. For those first couple of bullet points, we're offering $1,000, and the student nutrition referral bonus was recently increased to $2,000 for in a school year worth of employment. We're also continuing to offer to special education teachers and related services providers a $5,000 signing bonus in exchange for 2 years of service in that position, or up to $10,000 in relocation assistance for 4 years of service in the position. We're continuing to offer, we started this last year, to our speech language pathology assistants and educational interpreters, a $2,500 signing bonus in exchange for 2 years of service, or the same $10,000 in relocation assistance for 4 years. These are positions that really have a potential to lead into grow your own programs into SLP, speech language pathology positions, as well as teaching positions and other related service and student support positions. So we're really hoping that by offering these signing bonuses and relocation assistance, we're able to not only bring in current employees into these positions, but also those that have the potential to grow into certified positions or certificated positions. We're also continuing to offer to special education teachers in self-contained classrooms and to related services providers a 6% increase on their annual salary. And all other special education teachers receive a 3% increase on their annual salary.
Member Jacobs?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Going back to the slide regarding relocation assistance, if we've offered that for a significant period of time in the past, I probably missed it, but it seems like it's a newer offer from the district. Based on our climbing enrollment, our climbing vacancy rate in elementary and in educators in general, and the fact that Alaska remains uncompetitive, specifically in regard to our retirement plan, in a way that no other state in the nation does, I'm wondering if it isn't time for us to consider offering and expanding that $10,000 relocation or a relocation assistance offer to a broader class of employees. Is that something we've thought about, or are we doing and I just didn't track in the slides, Zach?
So I would say, I think kind of from my seat as the recruiter and speaking to a lot of the folks that we are bringing into these positions, we are able to, I feel a lot of, excitement from folks about this relocation assistance that we're offering. And we are able to, when we offer positions, we do offer just a blank field for if they have any, concerns or reasons that they may not have chosen to accept a position at that time. A chance to provide those reasons. And so I think it would be really helpful to look at that data and see if there's mention of the price of relocation or just the cost of moving, and see if that's something that we could address by increasing these amounts.
Just to follow up. Yeah, thank you. Having moved to Alaska years ago, I can attest to the expense, and I think we acknowledge collectively that we're only going to fill vacancies by looking outside Alaska, because UAA can't produce enough certificated teachers for us, let alone the entire state. So it seems like a pretty natural fit, and something that, I guess I'm curious on the efficacy too of, for pathology assistants and interpreters, for how many seem to be intending to take advantage of this, recognizing that I imagine some of them may not complete the 4 years, and then some of that may be clawed back or whatnot. But I hope we're strongly considering just recognizing how we're going to fill the bulk of our educator vacancies. Thanks.
Member Jacobs, if I could just add that in relation to the special ed and the related services, that is paid directly by our special education department.
And how long have we been offering a relocation bonus? I know that wasn't an option when I applied.
We think 3 or 4 years. But,
I just asked Senior Director Wayne, she said 2 years. 3. This is year 3.
Okay. I know down the road, 4 years in order to get the full benefit of it. With the current retirement system, there's some incentive to stay through 5 years. I'm starting to think we're looking at a whole lot of 5-year teachers in the state of Alaska that, and especially if they're younger, the math compels you to go somewhere else. Just trying to think long term. Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Please continue.
And I did just want to add about the relocation assistance, because this is something I find myself highlighting, is that it is a amount that we pay up front. So it is something that they have at the time of their relocation and in the full amount that they elect, and then with repayment obligations as needed if they don't complete the service. And we don't require any sort of account of how they use that money for their relocation. To Member Jacobs' point, we know it's an expensive move from anywhere, so they can use that as they see fit. So moving on to our report on interim guardrail 2.1 in reference to applicant diversity. So we did present this data in detail in our last presentation to the board, but we wanted to provide updated numbers. We are still exceeding the interim guardrail 2.1 target percentage of 48% that was set for fall of 2025. And notably, the data from the period of January to August of 2024, so since our last presentation, has showed that the percentage of applicants who self-identify in at least one of the 6 underrepresented ethnic groups increased from 49% to 58%. So we saw a significant increase there, and we saw a significant decrease in the percentage of applicants who are self-identifying as white. It decreased from 47.7% to 38.8%. And importantly, we did see a decrease in the percentage of applicants who opted not to identify their ethnicity. So this decreased from 3.4% to 2.7%. And we see this as proof of the efficacy of the language that we included in the application. That just a brief explanation of how we're using this data that we're collecting in the application process. And so we think that providing that disclosure and that explanation made folks more likely and more willing to provide that information. That's so important for our purposes in our report on this guardrail. And then I just wanted to touch briefly on the online recruitment platforms that we're continuing to use to build a diverse and culturally responsive workforce and staff for the Anchorage School District. So we are still posting and recruiting through LinkedIn, Handshake, Indeed, and then locally through Alaska Jobs, Alaska Teachers and Personnel, Alaska Native Hire, and then more broadly Ed Week or Education Week as well, posts all our jobs. Handshake specifically is our most robust online recruitment platform that we use. Can be thought of as sort of a LinkedIn for college or university students and alumni. Through this platform, we have access to employer branding. So we do have a company page where we can post information about the district, about our programs and the positions that we have open. We also have access to a large school network. So we have access to thousands of colleges and universities throughout the country, their students, current students, as well as their alumni, and their employee relations and their own recruitment departments through those schools. So we have access to the tools that they use and the ways that they connect with their students. We have unlimited job postings through this platform, so that's not true of every online recruitment platform. And this is really helpful given the wide range of jobs that we have and not having to pick and choose those that are most important at any given time. We also have access to messaging campaigns through this platform. So we are able to send specific recruitment campaigns to students who may be interested in specific jobs based on their education or background. We also send during sort of off seasons of recruitment, which doesn't really seem to exist anymore, but those seasons where students aren't, as actively looking for employment, we are sending employer branding campaigns and encouraging students to follow our page, register for events that we're having in the future, and generally just stay in touch with what the Anchorage School District is offering in terms of grow your own programs, in terms of employment and education opportunities. Through this program, as I mentioned, we host events. So I have office hours, weekly or bi-weekly information sessions, and we also are able to participate in job fairs, again, hosted by these university departments, employer relation departments. And then finally, this platform is a really helpful tool for, again, addressing that guardrail of building a diverse and culturally responsive workforce. So we're able to filter for and connect and reconnect with candidates that fit into specific categories. So students that are from HBCUs, Hispanic serving institutions, we can connect with students who are women or from underrepresented groups. And so this really helps us to make sure that we are constantly addressing that guardrail and really recruiting with purpose. And
Member Wilson.
Going back a couple of slides, the applicant interim guardrail 2.1 applicant diversity. I know that the increase in applicants for underrepresented ethnic groups has increased, but I'm just wondering, do we have data on the number of underrepresented ethnic groups? I guess what I'm asking is how many of those applicants have been hired? So what's the percentage of, just because people are applying doesn't mean that our increase in ethnicity is, or our increase in underrepresented ethnic groups has increased as far as employees. So do we have that kind of data that we could have shared with us, not today, but later?
So we'll provide a much more detailed report around these statistics when the Guardrail 2 report comes to the board. And we have historically reported on the different bargaining units in the district and the demographic breakdown of those groups. And then a few years ago, we were able to add this applicant data that we're able to get from our vendor, Recruit and Hire, which is owned by Frontline. I know there was a request from the board last year to do that analysis, and we are looking at whether or not we have the capacity to sort of track those numbers, but we'll certainly take note of that and make sure that we address that when the full Guardrail report comes out on these statistics.
Member Bellamy.
And along with that, could you please add whatever training or resources that we're providing for our hiring managers? Increasing diversity is absolutely the goal, but making sure we have trained whatever kind of training that is. I know it's there. I just want to make sure it's in the report.
Yep, we'll absolutely make sure that that's noted as well.
Thank you.
And also as a follow-up, any idea what the percentage of J1 visa holders are represented by this number?
We've got a slide on that pipeline specifically, but I want to circle back unless there were other questions on what Lucy just talked about with Handshake as a platform. I've heard Lucy give that presentation 3 or 4 times now, and I always thought, oh, that sounds like a really cool platform. But I had a moment a few weeks ago where it came alive to me in a new way. My wife and I had the opportunity to take our son down to college and drop him off. He's a freshman at the University of Alaska Southeast. And we were sitting in the parent and student orientation, and they asked all of the incoming freshmen, as one of the things that they do in their first couple of days is to set up a Handshake account. And before they attended their first day of class, they were already talking to them about the how powerful a tool this is for thinking about future employers and for starting to make some of those connections for future internships or student teaching opportunities or whatever that might be, depending on their area of study. And they incentivized it. So if students in the first couple of days took the time to create a handshake account, they could track that through the university, and they were giving away backpacks. So they were really at the university level trying to forge a connection between students and this platform right as they come through the front door, not even waiting until they're on the cusp of graduation. And so it really is, you know, it was kind of a light bulb moment for me at just how powerful a recruiting tool that this is with the way the universities are using it.
All right, and then I also just wanted to provide a list for your review of the local job fairs that we attend on a regular basis. So some of these are annual or more frequently, and it's just a way for us to maintain a presence in the community and make sure that we are recruiting locally as well as through these larger online recruitment platforms, and maintaining our connections and relationships with these employment organizations, these education and employment services throughout Anchorage and Alaska. So now I'll be going into some detail in the marketing campaigns that we have deployed this summer, specifically with an eye towards the local recruitment of classroom support and paraprofessional educator positions. So if you've been driving around Anchorage at all, I hope that you have seen some of the billboards that we posted at our schools. We also hung banners at all of our large high school sports stadiums in an attempt to message the community that we are looking for paraprofessionals. That is our largest area of need in the district right now. And that we have increased the wages for those positions. So thank you to the board for ratifying the new totem contract. And we can now confidently say that paraprofessionals are starting at $20 an hour, and that we have flexible schedule options and career development opportunities for folks that are hired into these positions. We've also had interviews with KTUU, Your Alaska Link, and Alaska Public Media to, again, get that message out that paraprofessionals are really our area of need for this school year. I think a lot of people still think about bus drivers when they think about our biggest area of need. We get that question all the time at job fairs, during these interviews, even when the interview title is paraprofessionals, they're like, but what about bus drivers? So I really want to adjust that messaging and just really to show what our biggest area of need is for this year. And so we were hoping to do that through these interviews and through these billboards. And then we also have a marketing campaign specifically with GCI. So this is our recruitment and outreach campaign that uses social media, so Facebook, Instagram, and other social mirror advertisements, as well as cable TV ads to deploy out-of-state recruitment and also to have local recruitment and outreach in the community. So for out-of-state recruitment, specifically for teachers, we're using behavioral and keyword targeting to reach current teachers in cities with similar sized school districts and with direct flights in and out of Anchorage. So in working with GCI and their advertisement team, those were suggestions that they had for how to best target our target demographic essentially for this recruitment campaign. And then we're also creating local awareness and encouraging community involvement and applications to our positions with cable TV ads and digital mobile conquesting. So those are those ads that are popping up on your social media feeds, hopefully. So more specifically, from April to September, we have deployed local recruitment, again, with those TV advertisements included. And this is for classroom support positions, as well as food service, IT and clerical support as a category, maintenance and custodial as another category, and then transportation positions as well. And then from October to March, so making that switch here soon, we will be deploying our out-of-state recruitment for teachers, which is again targeting those cities that have similar size school districts and those direct travel options in and out of Anchorage. So we have found that this has been a very successful campaign so far, and I wanted to share some numbers with you from the digital report that we received from GCI for our local recruitment campaign in July specifically. So just for the month of July, again, this has been deployed since April and will continue through this month. We saw 495,600 impressions. So this is the number of times that our ad was uniquely served during this month. So on different social media sites, through the TV, through all of these avenues, that's how many unique ads we were serving during the month of July. We had 3,789 clicks. So just as it suggests, this is the number of times that a user actually interacted with our ad, clicked on the Work for ASD link that's included, and hopefully, applied for a job from there. Our click-through rate is just a division showing that 0.76% of our impressions resulted in those clicks and interactions with our site. We are very pleased to say that we are 10.92 times greater than the national average for a click-through rate. So we've heard this feedback from GCI as well, and it's right there in the numbers. This is a very successful marketing campaign with a very high rate of interaction with the ads. And I think that is really because it's a local campaign. ASD has really strong name recognition in the community. And so when these ads are served, folks are interested in learning more. And then just a quick note on the total engagement rate, it's a little bit higher than the click-through rate because it also accounts for view-throughs, which are just an accounting of times that folks viewed our ad, didn't click at that moment, but did return to our site and completed an action or visited a page. And so, oh yeah, I'll just pass it over to Peggy to give you an idea of how we've seen the effects of this marketing campaign and our other recruitment efforts already in the trend of our paraprofessional vacancies.
Thank you, Lucy. In addition to thanking the board for the ratifying of the totem contract, I want to give a big shout out to the labor team on their efforts in getting to a contract that makes these valuable positions competitive wages within our community. This graph shows specifically special education paraprofessional vacancies. The fewest special ed para vacancies that we had last year were at 137 in October. As of August 30th this year, that's the same number that we have already. So it's very promising that we continue to trend down with this strong GCI campaign and with our billboards, et cetera. And as we know, in the next 4 to 5 weeks, we will continue to hire those special ed paras, as historical information has always been heavy for August and September hires for those paras. So very excited to see what this looks like in a couple of months.
All right, and then I wanted to just do a brief overview of our Grow Your Own programs that are currently active in the district. So we do have a Building Special Educators program, and we're actually going to show a brief video that our communications department put together with details about that program. We also have our General Education to Special Education, or GETS program. So this is a tuition assistance program for current general education teachers to earn their credentials in special education. So whether they need to complete a full degree or coursework to earn their special education endorsement while they are continuing employment with us. We also have our emergency and program enrollment certificate pathway, and Amanda will be providing some details on that and numbers that we're seeing in the district at this point. We are continuing our strong student teacher and counselor programs. So every fall and spring semester, we welcome student teachers and counselors into our buildings and provide them with training and supervision hours so that they can earn their teacher credential and hopefully come back and work with us. The school psychology and speech language pathology groups are offering internship programs as well and supervision for clinical fellows. Again, this is a strong pathway to employment. So these interns, I believe 6 out of 6 last year were hired into school psychology positions. So this is a really strong pathway for employment when we're able to provide those internship and supervision hours. For speech language pathology, we also have funding and training available for paraprofessionals to become SLPAs and then SLPs. We have something similar for behavior analysts. So supervision and funding available for our behavior strategists, which is an entry-level position, to become registered behavior technicians and then earn their board certified behavior analyst certification. With the launch of the Academies of Anchorage this fall, we are looking forward to this being a really strong recruitment pathway for Anchorage School District and our positions, both for education, classroom education, as well as these related services positions. And we're hoping that the pathways available at Betty Davis East, Diamond, South, and Chugiak specifically will build a pipeline for us to recruit local educators and those that have graduated from the Anchorage School District. So I'll pass it over to Amanda now to provide just some more details on that emergency and program enrollment certification pathway.
Thank you, Lucy. So as you see here on this slide, it kind of details out our emergency and program enrollment certification requirements. One way that we're working on growing our own is by utilizing these alternative pathways to certification. The emergency certificate requires a bachelor's degree and a job offer by ASD. It's valid for 1 school year and can't be renewed. This allows principals to hire applicants who have a minimum of a bachelor's degree and are interested in teaching. They can be hired while working toward obtaining either the program enrollment certificate or their initial certificate. Our talent management team works closely with these hires on the steps that they need to take in order to obtain that next certificate so that we don't lose them after that 1 year. The program enrollment certificate is someone who's already enrolled in a teacher preparation program. They also have a minimum of a bachelor's degree, but if there are candidates who are identified by a principal who's already in the program, they'd be great in their building, we can hire them under this program enrollment certificate. And they can become a teacher in the building while completing their degree. So these are 2 ways that we can bring people on board prior to having their initial certificate. And as you see here on this slide, we currently have 52 employees on an emergency certificate. This emergency certificate has been available since 2020. And then we have 48 on the program enrollment certificate. So as you see here, we have just about 100 people working in our buildings using these alternative pathways.
Question.
Member Bellamy?
So under the program, and the teacher prep program.
If you could get close to your microphone.
Sorry. The teacher prep programs, is that any university, or are you honoring any university in the United States? Or, okay, you are.
Yeah, it just has to lead to certification in the content that they're teaching in.
So if they're doing student teaching, who's monitoring that? I guess I'm trying to figure out what that looks like. So that it requires enrollment in a teacher prep program.
Mm-hmm.
So they can be enrolled in a university anywhere in the US. How do we, I just need more information on that. You don't have to give it to me now. Because how do we monitor that student teacher, or do we have someone on staff that is working with that university or any university to monitor that?
So the details that I could give you today is when these folks are under this program enrollment certificate, this could mean that they've just started their program. They're not quite to the student teaching piece. Once they get to that student teaching piece, they still follow our formal process of applying to be a student teacher. We know they're in the classroom, but they still go through the same process with academic services to get a mentor. They still have somebody do their observation hours, follow whatever the guidelines of that university are to fulfill their requirements for their internship piece.
Okay. All right. I may have a few more questions, but let's continue.
And I have one follow-up. Are they at B0 on the salary scale while they're doing this, or is there a special rate for people on an emergency cert?
Well, no, they would be put on the salary schedule the same, but if they're on an emergency certificate, they're coming in with 0 years of teaching experience and they do have a bachelor's degree. So in most cases, yes, they're broad enough to be 0. Okay, so this slide here just talks about how we're working to collaborate with academic services and building principals. Our goal with these alternative certifications is to build pathways for current employees. If principals recognize either a long-term substitute or a paraprofessional in their building, or even clerical, someone who in their building works hard, has that bachelor's degree, thinks they'll be a great teacher, we want them to reach out to them. And, you know, not everybody has the means to go the traditional route to become a teacher. So we're just trying to collaborate with our colleagues to build this pathway for our current employees.
I know we're short on time, but I'll just tell a quick story here. When I was a principal, on a number of different occasions, I had folks, I was at Eagle River High School, so we had a large percentage of military dependents. We had a lot of airmen and soldiers who would come and help coach, be assistant football coach or a wrestling coach or something. And they'd find out that they really like working with teenagers. And a number of times they came up to me and said, I think I want to be a teacher when I separate from the military or when I retire. What do I have to do in order to be able to apply for a teacher position? And at the time I would say, well, you would have to, if you have a bachelor's degree, you would have to, you know, enroll in a teacher preparation program. That's likely probably a 18-month to 2-year minimum commitment. And then when you're done with that and you get your institutional recommendation, then we'd be able to hire you as a teacher. And you could see them kind of go, oh, all right. Because there was other organizations in the community who would give them a job the day they separated. Some will even hire them prior to, and, you know, they can start that onboarding process. And so with this option, which the state opened up in 2020, now I could say to that person, if you're really interested, and if I know them as a principal and have faith in them, we might hire them into a position if they have that bachelor's degree, and then they do that concurrent enrollment in the program, you know, at the university, knowing that they're not yet a fully trained educator. So they do require additional support. And that's something that we constantly have to remind principals, that they need to go into these relationships with their eyes wide open, that this is not somebody who has had all the formal training that somebody with a full certificate might.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Chair, can I move to extend for 15 minutes? So that, because we haven't even gotten to the retention piece yet. Second.
I'm going to ask if there's room in the executive session.
Yeah, we can accommodate.
Yeah, without objection, we'll extend the work session for 15 minutes. Seeing none.
Thank you.
Please.
Can I follow up now?
Yes, you sure can.
So the model is a good model. It really does represent, it really kind of duplicates the Teach for America model, which this state does not engage in. So I guess my question for a future discussion would be, how are we managing I mean, I don't want our desire to, our need to influence high quality teaching. I don't. And I know we're putting a lot on. I mean, I appreciate the superintendent's move to more coaching for administrative staff and resources and supports that way. But that is going to put a lot of, we're asking our principals to do a lot. So I just need to I need to understand how that's going to balance out, because we're also asking teachers to do a lot in onboarding new people. And so I just need to understand how all these pieces are going to fit together. And if we have someone in central office, outside of your office or in your office, that will be taking responsibility for that onboarding and that providing the support to our principals as they do these things that we're trying to do. So just a hint for a later discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. And then just in the interest of time, I'll probably skip over the video. It's 2 minutes long. It's on the
It's only 2 minutes.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I guess we extended. So I'll go ahead and play this video that was developed by our communications team. about the building special
Hi,
ed.
my name is Lucy Tieford. I'm the recruiter for the Anchorage School District, and I'm here to tell you about the Building Special Educators Program. The Building Special Educators Program, or the BSE, is our tuition assistance program to grow special educators in the Anchorage School District. So if you're a current Totem or ACE employee, so a lot of our paraprofessional educators, clerical support, and ACE professionals are enrolled in this program, then we will provide you with 100% tuition up front to pay for your degree through the University of Alaska Southeast, to earn a degree in special education and become a special education teacher for ASD. So we do pay for the tuition up front, so you're not expected to pay the tuition and then we reimburse you.
I'm Kelsey Boslow. I am one of the assistant directors for special education instruction, working primarily at the elementary level. Special education really attracted me because I wanted to provide access for students to have inclusion and equitable educational opportunities, and really worked to create systems that allow all kids to have success and experiences, not just some kids. And so going into special education really fulfilled that personal piece for me, but also being able to advocate and encourage that inclusion, equity, and belonging. We get to do amazing things for kids. We get to be creative. It really is about building the capacity and growing our own, so that we are not only supporting our community and building the capacity of our community members, but also increasing the access, the supports, and services that we can provide for our ASD students.
Those are the folks that we want to continue to invest in, that we want to build into educators for our students. And so if you have an interest in working with students and you want to start out with us in the classroom, or again as clerical support, or as an ACE professional, then we want to invest in you and help you further your career in education.
So any questions about the Building Special Educators Program? That's just an overview. And thank you so much to our IT and boardroom support. The sound worked without a hitch, which is so exciting. So let me get back to, okay. So I'm not sure why it left full screen.
Member Wilson?
I just want to say I'm really excited about that one. That's honestly the first I'd heard about that particular program, and I'm very excited about that one. The opportunity for our Totem employees to have their tuition paid for in advance rather than having to have reimbursed to advance their education if they so choose is amazing.
And to continue to work while they're doing it, which is a barrier. Could be a barrier. Great.
Thank you. So now just a quick overview of where the Bridge USA J1 visa program stands at this point. So for this school year, the 24-25 school year, we hired 15 Bridge USA teachers, and that adds to our total of 56 teachers in the district. So this is a 3-year base period of exchange in this program with an option for a 2-year program extension. So we have 56 teachers at various years within their program. Out of the Bridge USA teachers who completed their 3rd year with ASD and were eligible for a 2-year program extension starting this school year, 11 of those 14 teachers have elected to extend with ASD. So we are excited to see that most of these teachers, a high number of these teachers, were excited to complete their full 5 years with ASD and have a full 5-year program. And the Bridge USA teachers are highly skilled teachers. They're required to be licensed in their home country and have at least 2 years of teaching experience in their home country or in another exchange program. For this year specifically, so for 24-25, we did limit hiring to for the J1 program to special education teachers. And we also chose to close hiring for Bridge USA teachers on April 12th, so just after our staffing event. And there's a couple of reasons for this. So in terms of limiting to special education teachers, we feel that the special education department has the supports available for these teachers at the departmental level. So mentorship, classroom management training, culturally responsive training, engagement with the school and with the department. This is really essential for this cultural exchange program. We want to make sure we're providing those district level supports to ensure that these teachers have a successful exchange period and a successful time in the US and in Alaska. And we feel that the special education department can best provide that at this point. The deadline for hiring for this year allows principals still to do their own interviewing for school culture fit and all of the important things that our principals determine during their interview process. And we want them to be directly involved in that hiring, but it does close hiring early enough to ensure that these teachers have school placements early enough to get a visa and arrive in Anchorage by late July in time for the new educator symposium and for the school year start. We have to have those specific school placements in order to start on their visa paperwork. And it's really important for these teachers to be here in time for that essential training and just to be familiar with the Anchorage community before they are in the classroom.
Mr. Chair.
And am I correct in assuming J1 visa teachers can be here for 5 years maximum? And then they have to leave?
Yes, so it is 5 years maximum for one exchange period, and then they need to return home for at least 2 years. And then they can participate in another exchange at that point if they wish.
Oh, Member Jacobs.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. So 2 quick questions. Are the special education teachers that are hired through the J1 program eligible for the hiring bonus or the relocation assistance?
So for the hiring bonus, they're not eligible for the relocation assistance just because the base period of exchange is 3 years. So we can't offer that full 10,000.
And then the other question is more of a feedback, and then I guess maybe a fact checking. I've been in contact with folks who have tried to navigate the J1 visa process, and one of the hurdles that was articulated to me is that the application, it sounds like, can only be done online, and some of the location information doesn't allow, or folks were having a perception that doesn't allow anything outside the US to be put in, which was causing a hard stop in the application. Has that concern come up before and been addressed? And then the other piece of the question, I guess, is does ASD accept an application on paper or faxed or a PDF version, or does it have to be submitted online through the portal?
So it hasn't been really a hurdle that I've run into. I know our application used to require a social security number, and we did remove that for international applicants to be able to apply before they arrive in the US. And address, I know I've seen just the ability to enter like ZZ or outside of the US in any sort of like state address requirement. Yeah.
So just to quickly follow up on the last piece, then, does ASD accept any form of application besides submitted through our online portal?
It does have to be submitted online. I think there's potential for sponsors or anyone else that's working with these applicants to assist them with that, or they can always reach out to us for assistance as well.
Please continue.
I'll pass it over to Peggy to speak about our retention efforts.
Thank you, Lucy. Lucy's covered the great recruitment efforts by the district, and now we're going to shift to a few retention efforts that are happening now. And note that we have room to grow in this area, and we'll be working closely with academic services in regards to retention of staff, specifically at our schools. So the bolded areas on this slide are named in the TT or the TRR report from the state in ways to strengthen working conditions based on teacher input. As you can see from this list, there are other supports in place we feel notable to share. And in addition, the second annual Family Night at the Museum is on September 18th. So we welcome you to join Team ASD, all ASD employees and their families, for free admission into the museum. The museum is partnered with us and has not charged ASD for this event. So we look forward to seeing you. We do continue to explore the Pulse Stay survey options for our staff as they are actionable, whereas exit surveys are not. Stay surveys are proactive and responsive to current issues employees are facing, and employees feel valued while increasing retention as their voice is heard. So as we reflect on our retention efforts, we must consider the employee exit survey data. This data is from January 1 through August 28th of this year. 35% of those who left ASD are under 5 years of service with ASD. Now, this is all regular employees, including classified and certificated. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm following along. It looks like 35% are less than 5 years, and an additional 19% is less than 1 year. So that's actually almost 50, that's 54%.
Correct.
It's more than half are 5 years or under.
Yes. Right. And then over the last few years, ASD has settled several contracts for hourly employees, and wages are becoming more competitive. So as we look at this exit data on reasons why they're leaving, the biggest one is from accepting outside employment within the community. My hope is that with these pay increases, that data for the coming year will look very differently.
Member Wessons?
Okay, really quickly, because we're at time, or just about, going back to the retention efforts, and I appreciate the exit survey slides and, yes, the last 3 slides. I appreciated that you emphasized that the items in bold go back to that TRR survey from like the spring of 21 or so. And I know, having thought about this before, that there are different elements that are important. And I pulled up the survey, and when we look at urban districts, which is ASD would be urban versus statewide, the priorities were adequate compensation for duties, retirement benefits, positive workplace conditions, healthcare, manageable workload, and a personal connection with students. Those are the top 6. And my sense is that there are financial components to those, as well as sort of culture components. And I just wonder if you could speak to any other ways that we can further our retention, because as I recall from a few months ago, recruitment is really expensive. It's like $29,000 or $30,000 a person.
Yeah, I'll take a shot at answering that, Member Lessons. I would say I have high confidence that we're doing all the things that we can be doing right now on the recruitment front. Right. We're deploying in every pipeline direction we can think of. And if somebody thinks we're missing something, I would welcome them to come forward and share that with us, and we'll add that to our repertoire. When it comes to our retention efforts, I think like a lot of things historically in ASD, we can point to pockets of excellence. Principals are doing a great job to create a positive work environment, a place where people want to work and want to stay. But I don't think we have invested a really concerted effort in doing something that is universal across all our schools. That's where I think the work has yet to be done. I think that's our work ahead. And on the last slide, if we get to it here, we'll talk a little bit about the multidisciplinary work group that the board included as part of the AOA master plan that was adopted in June. I really see that as a vehicle for bringing people up to speed on what we're doing on the recruiting side, but really shifting that conversation to retention, because the talent management team has a hand certainly in that, but we have to partner with the academic side of the house as well, and with our principals. That's really a all hands on deck effort if we are going to listen and respond to what our employees are telling us if they're considering leaving. And so I think that's the area that's the most right going forward.
Member Bell?
Just a question, we can talk later. I appreciate the exit data, I really do. But I'm really I really want to know about how people feel like right now. Which is why I really want us to do that, do what we said we were going to do in terms of getting together a task force or a committee or whatever, so that we can have those kinds of conversations with staff. So, and I know y'all are working on it, but really that's kind of where my brain is right now. I mean, I when people are gone, when they leave, I know they leave for various reasons. They're not always to do, like you have here. I mean, the job is completed. I changed my mind. My family's moving. I had a different opportunity. But how do we keep even with all those things, how can we hold on to the people and in terms of value and resource that we already have before the exit interview?
I'd also
do it
like
like I don't want an answer now because I'll be running short of time, but maybe another discussion or
I was going to ask, it says it's state surveys are exploring. I'm taking it you haven't actually put one out yet.
There was one initially put out through a vendor, I think in January of 21. And it was right in the middle of the pandemic. It was a really turbulent time. That effort was set aside, frankly, because there was other things that needed to be tended to. So we reached back out to that vendor to see about standing that back up last year. They have since been bought up and are no longer a viable vendor. So we started looking around at kind of what's available in the market, and we found one that we think we like, but we need to include that as part of our budget process for next year, and then start in the spring a real conversation with them or another vendor, and build that survey. Because the intent of a state survey is you ask the same series of questions over time, right? So on a monthly or a quarterly basis, so that you can listen, you can come up and formulate a short-term, midterm, and long-term plan for trying to address those concerns that are raised in the state survey. And then you can measure the impact of those things that you include as part of your action plan. And so we are still exploring it, but we're actively exploring it in the sense of it's something we want to do. We're just not quite there yet.
Okay.
I feel that maybe we should do something sooner as far as just surveying staff about how they're feeling going into the fall. I think that might be a real beneficial work session.
Do what? I'm sorry, sir.
To survey employees currently, just about how they're feeling, what their outlook is, just ahead of time to get a feel for where people think they are at now. And of course, right this moment, most people are still caught up with trying to get their feet under them for the fall and everything. But by October or so, a lot of people have an idea about how they're feeling about things. And might be an excellent barometer to at least start to see. I think retention ultimately means that we have to do something different than we're doing right now. And of course, the resources are limited, and that's a problem. But I think that's something that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the board would probably appreciate some insight into how the existing workforce is feeling and what their prospects are, what their thoughts are. I do Member Jacobs and then Member Bellamy.
Yeah, but I just want to first flag that we're actually over extended time. And so while I'm not chair, I might suggest that I get the last word, which I recognize as a conflict of interest, but I'll go ahead and say it anyway. I did want to flag that the we in your comments, Mr. Chair, probably should include folks outside of our walls here today. Member Lessons highlighted the TRR survey. It shouldn't be lost on any of us, and I know it's not lost on administration, that the majority of the items that were highlighted in that survey of 15,000 educators put pension, pay, and healthcare at the top of the list for how we address recruitment and retention. Those things all cost money, and if we're going to handle that purely at a local level, we have to take dollars from another bargaining unit, essentially, because 90% of our budget is staffing, and give them to educators. And so if that's the we, then we've got got a much longer conversation to have, but it shouldn't be, which is why we should include our colleagues in Juneau. So they have to do better, and they're failing right now. So did want to flag that too. With that said, I hope to receive more information regarding the teacher recruitment retention working group at the district level. I think that survey that President Holloman highlighted is something that could be handled out of that working group, but those are kind of my reflections. Last, I did want to thank the team for the presentation today. Super helpful, and appreciate your efforts to really focus on recruitment, and it sounds like we're addressing as well. Thank you. And with that, Mr. Chair, I move to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of legal updates, negotiations, and contracts.
I'm going to give Member Bellamy the opportunity on the last word if it's a short one.
He actually covered my last 2 points. Thank you very much for a great report. Look forward to more discussion. And there was another thing. The work group. I think we're going to get what we need to get from the work group. Surveys cost time and money. I really want, for me, the working group, especially around retention, is kind of where I would like to see our time and money invested. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we are recessed for executive session. We did from Member Wilson.